You're listening to episode 7 of Literacy in Color. Welcome to the Literacy in Color podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Sullivan, a science of reading advocate with over a decade of experience as a reading interventionist and literacy coach. I'm passionate about making evidence-based instruction both effective and engaging. If you're interested in captivating our learners on reading fluently and understanding language, or as I like to call it, keeping it colorful, then you've found the right place. Each week, we'll explore intriguing lit bits and practical strategies around the science of reading and structured literacy to help you be colorful and teach colorfully. Are you ready to bring literacy to life? Let's color outside the lines and make an impact together. Hey everyone! I'm so excited to dive into today's episode because we're about to unravel one of the most powerful models for understanding the science of reading, Scarborough's reading rope. Over the next 3 episodes, I'll be breaking down this model strand by strand to help us better understand how skilled reading is developed. Today, we're focusing on the bottom half of the rope, word recognition. But before we get into that, for those of you who aren't familiar with this model, let me paint a quick picture. In 1986, Go and Tumner put out a model called the simple view of reading, where they outlined skilled reading in a simple math equation. Word recognition times language comprehension equals reading comprehension. Notice how this is a multiplication problem, not addition. And in order for reading comprehension to occur, students need some substance in each of those factors because we all know in math that anything times 0 is 0. But what does it mean to have word recognition? And what does it mean to have language comprehension? How do we know students have skills in these areas? What does that look like exactly? Well, in the early 1990s, Dr. Hollis Scarborough expanded on Go and Tumner's model with the reading rope. She literally used pipe cleaners to show that both word recognition and language comprehension are made up of various subskills. She braided and twisted the pipe cleaners to show that the strands, that these skills are all interconnected. And the more tightly they're woven together, that's when skilled, fluent reading occurs. And there we have the product of the simple view of reading, reading comprehension. See how these models work together? The lower strands of Scarborough's rope emphasize word recognition skills. So what is word recognition? Essentially, it's the ability to recognize words and honestly, even the spelling patterns of our system. And this recognition is both accurate and automatic so that we don't have to spend cognitive load on deciphering symbols on a page. The word recognition aspect of the rope is broken down into 3 main strands: phonological awareness, decoding, and sight recognition. So let's chat about each one of these strands. First up, phonological awareness. Let's define it. I feel like that was one of those terms we learned in college only to never hear about it again. And as you know, I love to use morphology to help understand some of these more complex terms. So let's break it down. We have the Greek form phon, meaning voice or sound. Then log, meaning the study of something. Then we have even 2 suffixes on the end. ic, meaning having to do with, and al, meaning related to. And these suffixes are making this word into an adjective, phonological. It's describing the type of awareness. So phonological awareness is the study of sound patterns in a language. It's auditory. People often call phonological awareness an umbrella term because it's all-encompassing, incorporating lots of different sound properties, from syllables to rhymes and even individual sounds. And we could break phonological awareness from broader sound units to the tiniest sound units. So on the broader side, we have word awareness, then syllable awareness. We can move into onset and rhyme awareness, and finally, the smallest unit, phonemic awareness. Let's use a mentor sentence to understand the different components of phonological awareness. So if your love language is words of affirmation, hopefully this sentiment will make you smile. Your students will go far because you're a star. Given that sentence, your phonological awareness is what enables you to determine that that sentence contains 9 words. That's word awareness. Then there's syllable awareness, which helps you determine that the syllables stu, dents together make the word students. Onset and rhyme awareness shows us that spoken word parts, st and r, together make the word star. And then when it comes to the act of rhyming, it also allows you to quickly identify that far and star rhyme, while far and go do not rhyme. We can also consider alliteration, which helps you recognize that students and star both start with the sound s. And of course, at the phoneme level, being able to blend together the individual speech sounds, w, I, ul, into will, or breaking up go into g, o. When we can identify and manipulate speech at the word, syllable, onset and rhyme, and phoneme level, these are all marks of strong phonological awareness. Think of phonological awareness as the foundation for word recognition, because without it, students won't be able to decode or spell words. When a student struggles with reading or spelling, it often comes back to a gap in their phonological awareness. If they can't break words apart at the sound level, they're going to struggle when it comes to working with print. Now that we've talked about phonological awareness, let's move on to the second strand of word recognition, decoding. To decode quite literally means to decipher, to translate a coded message. What students have to do is stare at those squiggly symbols on a page and figure out what they mean. Scarborough's rope gives us a couple of bullet points beneath decoding: the alphabetic principle and letter-sound correspondences. So what's the difference between these two terms? Think of letter-sound correspondences as a key component of the alphabetic principle. Letter-sound correspondences, sometimes called grapheme-phoneme correspondences, show the relationship between sounds, or phonemes, with their written forms, or graphemes. Knowing a grapheme-phoneme correspondence means that you're able to match the sounds to the symbols and the symbols to the sounds. Keeping that in mind, the alphabetic principle is more than just teaching the alphabet. It's teaching the idea, the concept, that letters and even different letter combinations represent speech sounds in our spelling system. The alphabetic principle is the idea that letters represent sounds in words, while letter-sound correspondences is the understanding that each letter corresponds to a specific sound. So when we're teaching the alphabetic principle, our hope is for kiddos to understand there's a relationship, a connection between the sounds they hear and the phonics patterns they're learning in order both to read and to write. So for example, a child who knows the written letter A spells the A sound is demonstrating knowledge of the alphabetic principle. But the alphabetic principle also requires phonological recoding, the process of converting a written word to a spoken form by using knowledge of letter-sound correspondences. And how do we teach letter-sound correspondences? How do we instill the alphabetic principle? Through explicit and systematic phonics instruction. Phonics is all about understanding the relationship between letters and sounds. When we introduce the alphabetic principle, the idea that letters represent sounds, and that we can use this knowledge to decode words in phonics. Explicit and systematic phonics instruction is absolutely essential for helping students build those neural pathways that connect speech to print. As children master phonics skills along a scope and sequence, they become more proficient at recognizing and applying phonics patterns, such as consonant digraphs, silent letters, vowel teams, and so on. And they use this to quote-unquote sound out unfamiliar words for accuracy. It may be laborious at first, but this productive struggle in doing the heavy lifting, in doing the decoding work, is what the brain needs in order for it to stick. But instruction in decoding can go beyond basic phonics patterns. It's also helpful to get into syllable structure. This is especially true for older learners who need assistance tackling multisyllabic words. And since the English language is so layered, our decoding work can even get a little more sophisticated. The English language is what we call morphophonemic. It's governed by both morphology and phonology, the meaning units and the sound units. So learning phonics would only be one piece of the puzzle. To ensure that English is not a rule-breaking, crazy language filled with exceptions, we do need to tip our hats to morphology and etymology as well. And now for the final strand under word recognition, sight recognition. Now notice this doesn't say sight words or high-frequency words. And here's a quick clarification. Sight words and high-frequency words are not the same thing. High-frequency words are the most common words in texts like the or and. Sight words, on the other hand, are words that a student knows instantly by sight. A high-frequency word becomes a sight word once it's been mapped in the brain. Sight recognition is all about being able to recognize words automatically without having to sound them out. And again, that goes for any word. There's even this cute adage I always see on social media. Every word wants to be a sight word when it grows up. This process of connecting sounds to letters and vice versa, while attaching meaning, of course, for effortless retrieval is called orthographic mapping. It's the cognitive process of how we store words and word parts into our brains for quick, automatic retrieval. David Kilpatrick estimates that the average literate adult has a sight word bank, he calls it an orthographic lexicon, of about 30,000 to 70,000 words, which is incredible to think about. When words become sight words, when they become orthographically mapped in a student's brain for instant, effortless, automatic retrieval, that's where we really start to see students become fluent readers. Students look at these squiggles, their eyes are processing every single letter on the page, and in milliseconds, they're reading the word without conscious effort. Once a word is a sight word, you literally cannot not read it. The end goal, of course, is to help students turn as many words as possible into sight words. And the more sight words you have, the more fluently they can read, and the more mental energy they have available for comprehension work. So to sum up today's episode, we've unraveled the word recognition side of Scarborough's reading rope. Phonological awareness, decoding, and sight recognition are all essential strands that work together to help students become skilled readers. While these strands are independent of each other, there's a catch. If one strand is weak, the whole rope can be compromised. Each of these strands are stronger together than they are on their own. They're meant to be interconnected, and strengthening one area will help support the others. It's like a symbiotic relationship. When PA improves, decoding improves. When decoding improves, PA improves. When decoding improves, sight recognition improves. When sight recognition improves, decoding improves. They're supporting each other in a beautiful, beautiful way, making reading more accurate and automized. I hope you have a clearer understanding of what these strands mean and how they work together. In the next episode, we'll move on to the other side of the rope, where we'll explore what's entailed in the language comprehension portion of Scarborough's rope. But for now, I encourage you to think about how you can strengthen these word recognition strands in your classroom. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Thank you so much for tuning into Literacy in Color. I hope today's episode left you feeling both inspired and equipped with something new to add to your teaching toolkit. If you're enjoying this podcast, it would truly mean so much to me if you'd leave a 5-star review. It helps other educators find the show and join our colorful community. And don't forget to hit the follow or subscribe button so you never miss an episode. For more tips, tools, and resources, be sure to check out the links in the show notes at michelleandthecolorfulclassroom.com. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week. Until then, be colorful and teach colorfully.